There's another memory I have from the school, and it's that memory of not being good enough in certain things. I'm feeling bad because of that. I mean, I'll explain myself. So maybe I was good in literature and in writing and composing nice stories, but I was really bad in math. Then apparently I had to be good in everything, and because, you know, we had our marks, and that child was better than me, and blah blah blah. So it made me feel really bad to know the fact that I wasn't good enough in math, for example. And what do you think about this kind of way of thinking that everyone has to be good in everything in the school?
Well, I think that we have to ensure that all children have the requisite skills in certain areas. Children are our future. They are the people who will be taking care of us when we're old. So we need to invest in them. And, you know, being literate, being numerate, being able to, you know, communicate through new technology, utilize new technology, being able to get along with other people, having the softer skills, the social skills of teamwork and working together and understanding other people. Those are absolute foundation skills, the rocks which education is built on. Then people have preferences and people have strengths, and I think it's important that we don't give up on the student who's struggling a little with maths, or the student who's struggling with English, or maybe doesn't enjoy history so much. But we get to select early enough. Usually at 15, some countries 14, sometimes 16. So we get to be able to stop doing those subjects that we maybe are not so great at early enough. And so it's important that students know that if they are making an effort, they are trying their best, they are really, you know, making the most of the learning they've got, then the journey they go on and the place they reach is a good place for them. And it is good enough. In fact, it's absolutely fine.
Now, nowadays, there are a lot of news in the newspapers and TV about underperformance, about how the developed countries, some of them at least, they are underperforming, and we can see countries from the East, from Asia, performing a lot better than developed countries. Traditionally, they were better in performing. So, what do you think about these differences between performances in different even cultures?
It's very interesting. It's been in the news quite a lot in the UK recently. I think the first thing to question or to query is what is being measured. How do we measure attainment and achievement? If we are only looking at numeracy and literacy, yeah, they're really important, but it's not the whole story. So if we use whatever the criteria are that we're using to measure, will also determine often which country comes out top. So I think that's the first thing. What is it we're measuring? What is attainment? I think the second thing that's quite important is how those education systems that are at the top of the league tables go about educating their children. So if we look at the recent statistical information, for example, we have Korea in place of where Japan used to be, and some of the other East Asian countries right up there with achievement. But if we look at their education system and the methodologies they're using, they are really quite 19th century models. And of course those models of education of the 19th century were absolutely right for the population that we needed in the 19th century. When we were manufacturing, we were industrial in the West, and so that was right then. But the other country that's really up there, along with the East Asian countries, is Finland. Now, Finland has a very different education system, which values creativity, exploration, self-learning. And isn't it interesting that both of those models are measured on the same attainment, but are achieved in entirely different ways? So we have two models, both of which appear to give us high attainment. However, we then look at the price of those two models. And unfortunately, along with the highest attainment rates in Korea, they also have a very, very high suicide rate amongst young people, which was very similar to the situation in Japan some time ago. So the price that the children are paying for that level of attainment is a cost we must take into account. Because as a parent, what would you rather have? A child who has very, very high grades and is unhappy, or a child who maybe has mediocre grades but is very happy? Which one of those children will make the best contribution to the future of the world? Which one of them will have most creative ideas? Which one of them will have the confidence to go out and do something different?
So, listening what you're saying, it appears that having a good state, feeling well, it's very important in the education. That how we could turn these bad, negative feelings that sometimes the students have in class into positive ones. How we could do that?
Okay, so first of all, of course, some negative experiences are a good thing sometimes. The question about whether it's negative or positive or not is to do with how we feel about it in the present. Sometimes we can have a really bad experience and think, I'm never going to do that again, and that's a good thing. So we mustn't always think that every negative experience is a bad thing. It may be helpful to us. I fell off my bike as a child and hurt my knee pretty badly, and it wasn't very nice. But I remembered not to drive through the potholes again next time. So let's assume then that somebody's had a negative experience and it's impacting on them in some way. It's making them unhappy in the present. And often that's about, as you were saying before, it's about a bad experience maybe with a teacher, or a bad learning experience, or somebody said something mean to them. Because it's quite tough sometimes being a small person. I think it's really important that we reframe past failures as simply mistakes. So somebody says, oh, I can't do quadratic equations. I had this bad experience in maths. You say, oh, okay, well, maybe you just made a mistake. Let's back up and see what we've missed. The other thing that I do quite often is I apologize for the whole teaching profession. I'm not a very proud person, so it doesn't matter to me. So if you say, oh, I can't do this, I tried to do this once and it was awful, I'll go, oh, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. We, whole teaching profession, forgot to teach you a piece of this. So let's put this right now. I think that's a really useful tool for teachers to have. I think there's a lot of others. All of the techniques and processes that we learn in NLP about changing beliefs or collapsing anchors, swish patterns, all of those are equally applicable in the classroom. They can be done conversationally. Sometimes we can use metaphors, real physical metaphors, to enable the children to do away with experiences they don't want and bring up new and happy experiences. One
of the things that when that I train adults mostly, so one of the things that people say in the workshops, are beliefs, there are things that they think about themselves that they come from the school time. So that makes me think that the teacher has a lot of influence, has a lot of power to influence the belief system of children. So therefore, what the teacher says is like really important in the mind of a child. So I guess that a teacher should have an exquisite use of the language, because the language is that the teacher uses is forming things there in the mind of the learners. So probably the persuasive language and exquisite use of this language is really important, and probably is one of the skills too that you teach to teachers.
Absolutely. The tools of a teacher's trade are communication skills. They are not the knowledge of their subject. That is what I call a taken as read. If you don't know your subject, then don't go into the classroom in the first place. Once you are in there, then actually that is not the most important set of tools you have. The most important set of tools are your communication skills. Teachers sell learning. They need the skills and tools and language patterns of great salespeople. They need all of the Milton patterns so that they can connect that great piece of learning the student's done to the next one. They can convince them that they are able to achieve, even when the child perhaps doesn't believe it's true. Teachers, the influence that teachers have is only second to parents. And sometimes it's even more important.
Well, sometimes they spend more time with the teachers than the parents.
Exactly. And you know, sometimes I remember my son when he was little, and lots of parents will identify with this. He would come back and say, Mrs. So-and-so says, and Mrs. So-and-so says, and Mrs. So-and-so world was, you know, it. If she said it was true, if it was absolute. And in a way that's important, that they trust their teachers to tell them the truth, and they grow, you know, have a good bond with them. But that is a very heavy responsibility. And teachers need to take that very seriously. So utilizing exquisite language patterns, being able to influence and convince the students, and reward and praise appropriately so the students chase success. Those are skills that teachers really need to have, and I think increasingly they are gaining them. Teachers have the ability to influence and you know, continue to do so. So we have to make sure that that's in a really positive way. They are doing the best they can with the resources they have available, and it's up to us to give them and even more resources to do their job even more effectively.